everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded in the late after work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Julian.
I'm Madeline.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. And subscribe to our monthly newsletter at sleeplesscinematicpod.substack.com to get even more insights, recapped thoughts, and musings about our conversations and other related Sleepless Cinematic goings-on.
In addition to these main episodes, we also record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. But while we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, forgoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle of films featuring Twins and Doppelgängers with a category we call Mise-Unseen, where the three of us watch a film that we have not seen before and discuss our impressions and main takeaways from the first viewing.
And today we are going to be discussing Cloud Atlas, released in 2012, directed by Lana and Lily Wachowski and Tom Tykwer, written by the three of them and based on the novel by David Mitchell, starring, Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, Jim Broadbent, Hugo Weaving, Jim Sturgis, Duna Bay, Ben Whishaw, James Darcy, Keith David, Susan Sarandon, Hugh Grant, and
it keeps
Joo
going.
Soon. I think that's most of the characters that repeat in dual or more roles.
Yes, and it's a long list without accounting for the many roles they each play.
Exactly.
Yes. And this week, we welcome back a guest that I've known as long as just about anybody that I've known in my entire life. And while we've grown up and ended up on different coasts, one of the things that still bonds us is an appreciation for movies. I really have fond memories of all the movies that we watched and rewatched together as kids. One of these movies was The Matrix, a core movie theater experience for the two of us. That was, for a while, the definition of cool. So when it came to experiencing a new film from the Wachowskis, she was the first person that I thought of. So we are so happy to have her back on with us. My sister, Maria-Elena, welcome back to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Welcome.
Hello. Glad to be back.
And maybe it's just a coincidence that this is the second time you're joining us and also the second time you're joining us to discuss a Tom Hanks movie.
Oh, good point.
Oh my gosh. Well done.
So the next time we program a Tom Hanks movie, we know who to call.
I mean, clearly.
Yeah. How have you been, by the way? It's been about a year since we last spoke on this podcast.
On this podcast.
It's been a good year. I got a former workplace unionized, which was amazing.
Yes.
So I'm really feeling the collective power of collective action, which is actually perfect for a Wachowski movie because they're all about working together and seeing ourselves through the other and impacting each other.
I love this. Yeah. You're especially the right person for this this film. I love
real life application.
I'm about to get sappy as fuck, y'all.
Let's go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Something that I'm proud about with how we've curated this cycle is that we are finally getting to discuss a lot of directors who I think we all appreciate but haven't dedicated an episode to just yet.
Yeah.
I think I may speak for all of us in saying that I am more familiar with the output of the two Wachowskis than with Tom Tykwer. Well, I've seen Run Lola Run.
That's the only one I've seen.
I've seen that one too.
Which is a great movie.
It is. I just feel like I don't have as much of a sense of his directorial identity, or at least not as much as I do of Lily and Lana Wachowski.
And I don't know that this movie really clears that up either.
I would
because
agree.
it's like 6 movies.
Yeah. And it's co-directorial, and I thought it had a pretty consistent tone and style to it.
I think so too. Yes. Yeah, big time.
And we'll dig deep into Cloud Atlas momentarily, but before we do that, I think a lot of people who hear about this movie or discuss it know what they're talking about. But, when we talk about films from the early 2010s that reference celestial bodies, Cloud Atlas is not to be confused with Maps to the Stars.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
This is a great pick.
That Madeline and I have both seen at separate times. This is a film. This is an entertainment satire that is written by Bruce Wagner, who I think is more known for that kind of thing, but directed by David Cronenberg.
Yeah. Definitely like a slight departure from his usual style, but I do think that he's able to put a unique spin on that story that no other director would have been able to bring to it.
It's a movie that fits his sensibilities surprisingly well.
Yeah.
It's maybe one of the under-discussed, underappreciated David Cronenberg movies.
And more on him later.
Yes.
Cronenberg later. So
Hint, hint. Yes. Maps to the Stars, that came out 2 years after Cloud Atlas, and they are not the same film.
That's true.
Cloud Atlas is not to be confused with Atlas Shrugged.
Absolutely.
Which is a truly awful trilogy of movies about how capitalism and rugged individualism are the best thing ever, and socialism is the worst thing ever. It's pretty much the polar opposite of anything the Wachowskis have done, but definitely with Cloud Atlas. Not to be confused.
These two titles are, in my mind, kind of like a from last cycle, like Velvet Underground, Velvet Goldmine kind of situation where I'm like, well, obviously I know the difference between these two things, but my brain wants to mix them up sometimes.
Big time. Oh, yeah.
Just because. I have actually mixed up these titles before.
I feel like when you name drop Atlas, you are begging for the comparison to Atlas Shrugged in some ways.
Yeah. Prior to Cloud Atlas, it's definitely the first thing that I think a lot of people think of when they hear the word Atlas, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Greek Titans are probably pissed that Ayn Rand has claimed so much capital, pun intended, on that term.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say Cloud Atlas is not to be confused with either Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs or its sequel, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. Not to be confused.
Yeah. Also, just, films that mention clouds released within a few years of one another.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That is true.
This name came up once already in this discussion. When we're talking about films that feature the Whatever Happened to Him actor Jim Sturgis that also have a semi-picaresque quality to them, Cloud Atlas is not to be confused with Across the Universe.
Yeah.
Which is the Beatles jukebox musical that came out in 2007, directed by Julie Taymor. That is how I learned of the existence of Jim Sturgis. He seemed like kind of a hot presence in Hollywood for a few years, and I do kind of wonder what happened to him.
That is a movie I have still not yet seen, and I freaking love the Beatles.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always a little nervous to engage with anything that is actively trying to trade on Beatles nostalgia, but I've heard that it's pretty good. So maybe I should open my heart to that one.
I saw it close to when it came out. I enjoyed it. And it's also, like Across the Universe, Cloud Atlas,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's talking about things in the sky and beyond and traveling them. So not to be confused.
Very nice.
So I think this is a big ask, but Emilio, what is this movie about?
Good sir.
Okay, so the way I'm going to set this up is just this movie concerns itself with 6 different timelines and settings and groups of people. But as was stated before, there are basically like a company of actors trading these roles. So I'm not really going to name too many of the characters' names here. I'm just going to describe the situations that then situate the characters that we're going to dig into a little bit more.
Okay.
So 1849 in the Chatham Islands, and there's an American lawyer who boards a ship for the United States, and it concerns the relationship that he builds with a stowaway slave and the ways that he stands up for this guy and how that slave also stands up for him changes the course of his life.
And perhaps his next life.
Exactly.
His many lives to come.
Yep, totally. Then we fast forward about 85 years or so. We're in 1936. That was really rough math, but here we are. It's late at night. Now we're with an aging British composer who takes on a scribe who's a very talented musician in his own right, but a young man with a personal secret that is used against him when this older composer desires authorship of one of his scribes' works. Then we're going to move forward this time. Oh gosh, is my math going to be good here? 47 years?
40-some.
Okay, 47 years to San Francisco. And now we're following a local reporter who learns of a cover-up at a nuclear plant. And it's about how she has to maneuver through several dangerous situations to get to the truth and expose this company for what they're really up to. Now we're going to move forward 39
years.
39, thank you. 39 years. Now we're in London. This is 2012, and we're following a hapless book publisher who gets in deep with an unscrupulous writer whose brash memoir he's earned quite the profit from. And his attempts to pay him off puts him in an old folks' home with perhaps some connections to his unresolved past. Okay, we got 2 more of these. Now we're in Korea. It's 2144, and
It's Neo-Korea.
Exactly, Neo-Korea. And we're introduced to a human-styled clone, robot, synthetic blend. Thank you, Fabricant. Her name is Sonmi 451, which has to be a Fahrenheit 451 reference.
Not to be confused with Fahrenheit 451.
Exactly. Yeah, she's programmed and designed for servitude, but she learns of rebellion essentially from another one of these fabricants. This kind of starts a chain of events where she then becomes a symbol and a voice for rebellion amongst others before she gets arrested and sentenced to death by deprogramming of some sort. About 100 years or so after this, we're introduced to our latest realm or timeline, and we're in a dystopian version of Hawaii, apparently. I didn't quite get that when I was watching it, but this is what Wikipedia has kind of helped me understand. And this is where Tom Hanks, speaking in kind of this funky, slangy sounding dialect, is like a tribe leader, and he encounters a woman from some sort of off-world group of people, society, and she's in search of a communication base there where she can then use it to send an alert. And they start an alliance that ends up teaching both of them quite a bit about themselves and what they believe, and also what might be in store for them in their life. And I'm going to say life because we don't know if there are any other lives that come after that. That's for Cloud Atlas 2. And this movie very freely bounces back and forth between these timelines, but mostly, you know, they're linked thematically throughout the film. And what seems to connect these characters is how their past lives seem to kind of inform their future ones, and also borrows, I think, a bit from concepts of karma and reincarnation. But that's the setup for this movie, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Also, dang it, not to be confused with Past Lives.
Oh,
It was right there.
More on that later.
Yes.
But yes, I think that was as succinct as you possibly could have been.
Which is crazy because that has to be the longest that we've ever.
Well, we've never discussed a movie that's actually 6 movies.
That's true. This is a good point. Yes, yeah.
Actually, yes, we have. It was the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Okay,
Oh.
that's true.
Was that
Yeah.
6? That was 6 of them.
Exactly
yeah.
6 stories.
I guess, but we
Never mind.
really only focused on one.
That's true.
Let's be
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
It's funny because that is an episode where we discussed 3 movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that movie had 6 stories.
And-
So that might take the most movies in one episode title.
Yeah. Check out our episode about Tom Waits. It's about a year back in our feed.
Which
go.
my dad was on, another relative
Yes.
episode. That's fun.
Very nice.
So what did you guys know about this going in? Has anyone read this book?
I have not.
read this book. Maria-Elena, you had said, oh yeah, this one I'd like to rewatch, which tells me that you've seen this before. That would be a unique trait amongst all of us on this call that you had seen this. Am I right?
Yeah. I
Cool.
saw it in 2016, I think. 2016, 2017. Had not read the book. Still haven't read the book. I wasn't paying a whole ton of attention the first time, but I do remember the yellow face.
Yeah.
That stood
you
out
know,
to me.
Yeah.
That made me go ew, and
Understandably.
it's making me go ew again.
Yeah. It's making me go, why?
Yeah.
I have thoughts about that. I will reserve them.
We will get to that for
Yeah.
sure.
we will most certainly make room for that.
Yeah. And what were your larger takeaways from the film? Did you like it? Were you as confused as I am about it all? Or
It's a lot to process.
Yeah. It was one of those, like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I do remember just having a good time.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it scratched my brand of neurospicy just right. and it scratched my girlfriend's brand of neurospicy just the wrong way. She was so excited by this movie. Bless her for sticking it out with me for 3 hours.
This is a very overstimulating movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I personally sat down to watch this on, I think, Sunday, and I watched an hour of it, and I was like, I'm going to bed. I cannot.
Oh, no.
I cannot watch any more of this movie. But I've since, like, I finished it, and then I actually this morning rewatched it in full. I managed to find time to do that, and I'm really glad I did, because I ended up liking it a lot, but I was similarly just like, I don't know if I can handle this movie.
And this movie, I think that like some of the opinions that have already been expressed speak to what I gathered was the general consensus about this movie. Like, I was aware of it when it came out in 2012, but I didn't see it at the time. I don't think there was any like particular reason to it. I just kind of didn't get to it until now. And I think I had like a general idea of the movie. It's like, oh yeah, Tom Hanks and Halle Berry are in it. They play multiple roles. I had heard some of the like common praises and also reservations about the movie. About a month or so before we're recording this, I was hanging out with the oft-mentioned my cousin Sylvie, and
another relative guest.
And yes, and her partner Lauren. And I saw that as part of, I want to say it was Lauren's DVD collection, that there was a copy of Cloud Atlas, and I mentioned, we're going to talk about that pretty soon. And I hope I'm remembering this correctly. I think both of them said that they like generally enjoy the movie, but that they love the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about reading the book.
Me too.
My understanding is that, so I bought the Blu-ray to this at Book Off. Shout out Book Off.
Yeah.
And it had some featurettes, and some of them had David Mitchell on, the author of the novel. And he said that he wrote each of these 6 stories in full, but then the way that the book is published is that they're each split in half. And I'm not sure which one goes in the middle. It's either I assume it's the latest in time one.
Yeah.
And that one you get in full, but like all the ones before then, you just get exactly half. And he was like, I didn't even write it with that in mind. I just like split it in half at the cliffhanger. You get like exactly half of each of the stories, I think chronologically, and then a full story in the middle. And then you get the second half of each story going through the rest of the book.
Yeah, I'm so curious what the creative process for this was like.
Yeah.
Do you come up with multiple stories knowing they're going to fit together from the get-go, or do you just start with one and think, oh wait, here's another, and how substantial am I going to make the connection to it? How much can the reader pick up on it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I also feel like this is the kind of exercise where a writer would just be like, let me run down a bunch of different strands, and that some of the discoveries come from just what would be tendencies that a writer would have. Like, what kinds of characters are they interested in
Which
developing?
Archetypes are you defaulting
Exactly. To? Also, like, what are some of the themes that you find that you just like want to explore or have these characters explore?
And like have multiple ways of exploring these themes.
Right. Yeah. It's a really cool concept. I think it's like, this had to have been really challenging, but also very fun for the actors.
Absolutely. All the featurettes I was watching, the actors were talking so much about how they were so drawn to this concept. Tom Hanks basically said, he's like, this is the most fun I've ever had, and this is also the most I've ever had to like work.
Yeah.
And Hugh Grant loves playing villains, and he gets to play 6 in 1. He is having the time of his life. May I enjoy anything in life as much as Hugh Grant is enjoying his time in this movie.
Also, Hugo Weaving, similarly, just like... You know, getting to really flex those villain muscles, I think, throughout. Yeah, very fun.
I was not sure when to bring this up. I do not feel this way. I want to make that very clear.
Okay.
Paul Schrader's Letterboxd review of this movie is just like shitting on Hugo Weaving.
Oh, really?
It's just like, Hugo Weaving is the worst actor alive.
Oh my! This is some like Tarantino, Paul Dano level.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, the two of them are gonna have to fight it out on like who they think the worst living actor is. They're like, he sucks like the energy out of any scene he's in, and I was like, this is so mean, and I think also incorrect.
Yeah.
Did we watch the same movies?
I read this and then I rewatched the movie, and every time Hugo Weaving comes on, I was like, he's crazy. Like, he looks great in this.
And he's having so much fun as the villain in the post-apocalyptic story. Like, I love the scenes he's in.
I don't think anyone else could have sold old Georgie.
Yeah.
I think he's maybe the only actor that I can think of that could have sold that character so convincingly, because you have to do that, I'm sorry, very dumb dialect that like I don't think that Tom Hanks and Halle Berry are like always effective at delivering.
We're going to get back to that.
But I do think that Hugo Weaving as old Georgie is effective at delivering that dialect.
You know, for actors with whose names begin with the letters H, U, and G, maybe they're just born to play villains.
Exactly.
But,
and born again to play villains and born again to play villains.
Yes.
Yep.
I read on the Wikipedia that Hugh Grant pretty recently played a memorable villain role in the movie Heretic, and that the two directors of that movie cast him in Heretic because of his performances in Cloud Atlas.
Oh, cool.
He's really gotten to relish in playing some darker characters.
Totally.
Yeah, he has, for sure.
In terms of how I received this movie, like coming away from watching it, I also got to it twice, and the first watch was like felt a little wacky. I think I got a lot of it, but I had a lot of questions. Second watch helps significantly.
100%.
I always feel bad. I mean, the nature of my life, I'm raw dog in this one too.
I don't ever want to watch a movie like this again, where I watched it the first hour, I went to bed, I rewatched the first hour.
Oh, I've done that.
And then I watched the second hour, and then I went to bed.
Oh, well, welcome to my life, Madeline.
God.
This is 4 out of 5 viewings I do for this podcast.
And then I watched the third hour. And then I watched the whole thing in full this morning.
Yeah, minus that.
That's almost making like a Russian doll structure like that of the book of your viewings.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that was my intention the
All
whole
along.
time, actually.
You just had to Cloud Atlas the viewing experience for yourself.
But in terms of like how I come away from those two viewings opinion-wise, I'm in a pretty similar place to a lot of people who have seen this. I think generally I enjoyed it. There's a lot that I think is done really well in the movie. And I think that the Wachowskis plus Tom Tykwer made for a very interesting and capable team in directing a great deal of it. But I do think that where there are flaws, and there are a few flaws, they are kind of glaring. Yeah.
That's definitely true.
It's, to be clear that I'm not equating these movies in terms of quality, but I came away from it feeling a little bit how one might feel about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where it's kind of like the strong things in it are pretty strong. Like the Duel of the Fates is one of the great Star Wars duels, but the flaws are, they're pretty cringeworthy.
Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But also like the ethnic coding of certain characters and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That poor actor, my goodness.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, we're allowed to not like Jar Jar, but don't take it on the actor.
Oh, please do not. That poor man has gotten so many death threats.
Exactly.
Justice
He has
for
been through
Ahmed
it.
Best.
Yes.
That's his name. Thank
Yeah.
you. Ahmed Best. Yes. So I felt kind of similarly, actually, to you all. I also watched it in segments, as is life. It was a very hard movie to come back into.
Yeah.
But the process of watching it was actually very enjoyable.
It's a fun movie while you're in it.
I don't know if mics were on when we were talking about this, but I think tonally, the movie is actually in really good control of itself throughout. Yeah. That's one of its strengths in many respects. I also dug the score. I think the score of a movie like this is very important when you don't have other more traditional things threading a viewer along.
It also exists diegetically.
Diegetically, thank you. The sextet.
And while we're talking about the score, we have to mention that it was co-composed by Tom Tykwer.
Yes.
Him and then collaborators Johnny Klimek and Reinhold Heil. And Tom Tykwer, he's one of those directors who I think more than once has composed the score for his own movie.
Yeah. A la like John Carpenter or maybe Clint Eastwood too.
Satyajit Ray. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very important element of Cloud Atlas's pacing. And to be honest, for whatever you might praise or criticize about the movie, I think for a 3-hour movie, I was not at any moment bored watching it.
Definitely.
This is certainly not a boring movie.
Yeah.
No.
I also didn't feel the time pass, which is, again, polar opposite of the experience my girlfriend. She was like, I'm exhausted. And I was like, that was 3 hours. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I somehow experienced both of these. I experienced being the first time when I watched it in 3 sections, it was because every hour I was exhausted.
Yeah. You're like,
and I was like, I've had enough and I can't process this anymore. But then like on my second watch, I feel like I was in it and I feel like I didn't feel the time and it was over and I was like, great. That flew by really smoothly. It's really well paced, I think.
Yeah.
It's weird pacing because of the fact that it cuts constantly. Like there are times when you get all of 7 seconds in a story before you cut to another one, maybe less.
Right.
And you were talking about the tonal consistency. I totally agree with that. It's particularly impressive because according to the featurettes I watched, these are essentially 2 completely separate units. There's like a Wachowski unit and there's a Tykwer unit. And Wachowskis, I think, do the first one, the Ewing one on the boat, and then I think do the latest 2. So the Sanmi and the Zachary Bailey one. And then Tykwer then does the Frobisher, Louisa Ray, and Cavendish.
Interesting.
Stories.
Yeah. So the present day and closest to the present day are all handled by Tom Tykwer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That explains. Okay. They made the interesting choice of having Hugo Weaving cross-dress.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't sure why they did because, number one, male nurses exist. I have worked with them. They're amazing. Number 2, Lana was out. They had to know that it was really not okay to put a man in a dress. But now at least I know it probably wasn't their decision.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I think that this movie obviously kind of steps in it in a lot of ways. We're trying to make these souls go through different vessels, and sometimes it's different genders and sometimes it's different races, and like sometimes it's a lot worse than at other times, but still bad.
And maybe there's some sense of immunity, I guess, from some of the criticisms that may normally come from that, because it's like baked into the whole conceit of the film that there is supposed to be great fluidity between the characters and the interconnection of it all. I don't know. I actually, it's funny watching this movie. I know that those things existed throughout. I never had, not even with the yellow face, although I clocked it, but I never was like, oh God, why in God's name was that happening? And I think part of it is because of the conceit of the film. It's not like these people get a pass necessarily for that, but I think when you're constructing a movie like this and you're asking for so many suspensions of disbelief when it comes to the world and an afterlife that may be governing everything, it's almost like an experiment to see if all of this can get pulled off. I'm not as critical of some of the things that I think would jump out to me otherwise. And that's not to say anybody else couldn't. I think that was my personal experience watching the film.
So yes, as we have abundantly acknowledged, Cloud Atlas features its entire principal cast in many different roles across its interwoven narratives. Some of these, as we have acknowledged, connect very tangibly to one another, and not just the characters, but the stories themselves. And other times the connections are more abstract, or if you put it less charitably, sometimes even tenuous. Additionally, some choices made in the film's cross-story casting I think make pretty clear sense, but some others, as we have already acknowledged, are controversial and have drawn understandable criticism. So, with this film's casting conceit, do you think that is necessary to see some of these stories as mutually irrelevant? Or do you think that any of these stories could have done without or perhaps benefited from more varied casting?
I have thoughts on this.
Go for it.
Yes, please share.
The reason the yellow face bothers me so much is I'm fully on board with the idea of the same actors playing the different characters. I think that ties it together visually really nicely.
Yeah.
The yellow face was entirely unnecessary.
Thank you. This is what I was going to say.
Seoul
Continue.
is an international city. Even now, it's an international city. There are people of all races there. And in the 23rd century, whatever, in the future, I'm sure there's even more so mixture, right?
Yep.
There was
100%.
absolutely no reason for them to have Asian features.
Yeah.
They didn't need to. Or if you really had to, set it literally anywhere else in the country. You've got the same issues of like sea levels rising. Put it in like London or
Miami,
New York, LA, literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm so glad you said this because I wrote the exact same thing. Like the Neo Soul story could have been the exact same without the yellow face. It would not have changed anything because this is, as you said, Seoul is already a very diverse city. And now we're in a futuristic version of Seoul that would be even more so. So it adds nothing and it takes away, I think, a lot.
I think it would actually add an element to Sonmi's story, like the Fabricants being all clones of Asian women. There's that really nasty stereotype about Asian women being like sexy and submissive.
Yeah.
And now they're set in like another part of the world where like Asian people are not the majority there. They made a choice, right?
Yeah.
To make these clones Asian. Like
to co-opt
that probably would have enhanced that theme.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's an interesting like plot of the movie because I think that like apart from the yellow face details there, I actually think that that's one of the stronger stories of the bunch.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
If you can get used to the terrible choices of makeup.
Right. Yeah, as you're pointing out, it's not even necessarily casting, it's makeup specifically. That part of the reason why I think it's one of the stronger entries in this greater group of stories is because it's one where directorially the Wachowskis are the most in their element. Like because it's futuristic sci-fi that, you know, some of the action and the world building and the special effects there, I mean, it feels more like kind of their home base. You know, if you've seen The Matrix, in directorial details, the Neo Soul plot line, also just gotta love that it shares a name with a musical genre. The Neo Soul plot line in 2144 has like some moments that feel pretty characteristically Wachowski, not just in like the art direction and like the general world building of it, but also thematically.
Yeah, 100%. Of like, there's this one person who maybe isn't like predestined to be a savior, but still has to step up.
Yeah. I think one of the broader connections between many of these stories to varying degrees is I mean, there are a bunch of themes, but one that I really tracked is resistance to authority.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that.
That's front and center in the Neo Soul plot line. And some of these plot lines also, I think, have pretty clear allusions to some highly regarded film stories that precede Cloud Atlas. And this Neo Soul plot line, very clearly an homage to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Fabricant, replicant.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll get into what some of the other ones are. But yeah, and I think, maybe that when it comes to criticisms of the casting, the yellow face is the most common criticism. To be honest, there were a few other moments throughout the movie where, you know, sometimes casting is the issue, but if it's not casting, there are just some things about like how the stories are set up that I found a little problematic too. And it's, you know, if we're going to talk about casting specifically, that also having, I mean, yes, we get it that these characters have to appear across the different timelines, but having Hugh Grant play that cannibal character in the furthest in the future plot line, I was kind of cringing at that too. And this is, you know, the character he plays there, I think,
Chief, the Kona Chief.
I mean, some of the general imagery of that plot line, I also was just kind of like, oh, this is rough. Because it's like it just has very much the feeling of like
indigenous.
Yeah, the way that in like a lot of Westerns that like indigenous tribes have historically been
savages or
portrayed. It just felt a lot like that watching it to me. Whereas
the Kona tribe is a real tribe. They live on the dry side of the island. Where the hell were they? There were no native people in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're portrayed as cannibals. It's very gross.
Yeah.
Cannibalism was kind of a running theme throughout the stories, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like cannibalism is a very quick way, I think, to make somebody seem pretty villainous or to create an environment where people are just like, fuck that, get me away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like when it comes to not just issues of casting, but the nature of casting in this film, that this, you know, where it does feel a little bit oddly selective is that, so all of the principal actors are in more than one story, but the exact amount that they are each in, that varies.
It varies, yeah. Only 3 of them are in every story, and that's Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, and Jim Sturgis.
And actually, in the villain roles, you've got Hugo.
Oh wait,
Weaving.
sorry.
Hugo Weaving.
So yes,
and
as
Hugh
you were
Grant,
saying,
yeah.
also the villains Hugo Weaving and Hugh Grant. But if you think of like kind of the main characters,
Yes.
only 3 of those main actors are in every story.
And then you've got a few. Some of them even are main characters, but they don't appear in as many stories. Like Jim Broadbent is in 5 of the 6, and in some of them also he's like in some small roles. So it really feels more like he has a consequential role in only 3 of them. Duna Bay doesn't just seem like she's in, a certain amount. She is factually in only 3 of the 6.
And she's extremely minor in 2 of them.
Right.
Like she doesn't even get introduced in the Ewing story until the very end of it.
Right. And well, in both of the other plot lines where she is cast, that she's also playing a different race in those roles.
Yeah.
That in the Ewing story, it's like depending on how you interpret it, maybe there's like less room for it to be quite so rigid. But I think the implication is that this is a white character.
Yeah, that was, I think, the intention.
Yeah. But she very specifically plays a Mexican woman in the 1973 plot line. That was another moment in the movie.
Another very weird choice. Are there
Yes.
no Asian people in San Francisco? Spoiler alert, there are.
Yeah, it is kind of like, again, why?
Yeah.
There's the question of why, and not just the fact that this casting choice is made, but also that the race is made a very specific point of when this character appears.
It's also, this movie weirdly has a lot of slurs in it.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
That's like an example, but also like the N-word is said a lot in this movie. And again, it's odd. It takes me out of the movie a little bit.
Yeah, no, I have that same criticism, particularly of the 1849 plotline, where it's just like, I think, when you watch enough Wachowski movies, you begin to understand that, there are a lot of resonant themes in their work, but they're like, I don't put on a Wachowski movie and expect there to be realism per se. That there's a campiness you have to run with for a lot of those. But, when you consider that sort of inherent campiness and the tone it establishes, it's pretty jarring for like a venomous racial slur to come into the picture there. For a movie that we have praised the tonal consistency of in other parts of this conversation, that is a moment of tonal inconsistency.
Even when it's not going so far as to use a slur, color is referenced in points that I find unnecessary. Like in the very latest story, the Zachary one, old Georgie is like whispering in Zachary's ear about how he's lusting after Halle Berry, and he like makes reference to the color of her skin in a way that I'm like, again, why?
And nothing said about the fact that he's green.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
dude,
maybe
you don't have
skin color
any place to talk, Mr. Green Monster. What is he?
Wicked warlock.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that guy is.
Wicked warlock of the West.
Yes.
I mean, like, I think I have some similar reservations to you, Madeline, about that plot line. Although I thought that old Georgie was, aside from details like that, maybe the strongest point in that story.
I mean, I overall kind of like the Zachary story. There are parts of it I don't like, but there are parts I do like. And I do think old Georgie is like weirdly
one of the strong parts.
One of those strong parts.
Yeah. Like in thinking of the question of like, why do all of this cross casting? I would have been satisfied watching a movie where, some of the roles are connected in this way, because like some of the cross story casting results in roles that truly are blink and you miss it.
Yeah.
Like the more minor appearances of like Jim Broadbent or even Jim Sturgis.
Or like Ben Whishaw as the cabin boy in the first one is like, he's on screen for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. And so it's, especially for like Duna Bay playing a Mexican woman in the 1973 plot, that like, I think that the story would not have lost anything if a Mexican actor had played that part.
Because there's plenty of other times in this movie where you have like a single character played by a single actor that's only in one story. It's not like every single minor character in this movie is played by an actor that's in every story.
Yeah. Or in only one case, you have a single character that appears in 2 stories, and that would be Sixsmith.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my favorite portrayals in the whole movie, if not my favorite.
Same here.
Yeah.
So this is coming to my mind. One of the things that really colored my watch of this was knowing that it was a book first.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In a book, none of these problems exist.
Yeah.
like
Absolutely
at all.
not. This is a Wachowski and Tykwer creation.
Right. But the idea that these souls would reincarnate and be a totally different race, that's something that is not nearly the same issue.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could do that. And I think, Julian, this is part of your question.
Yeah.
With just different actors.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that may be like harder to follow. I do like the conceit of it being the same actors playing different roles, but it didn't have to be. And it would have solved some of these issues for it to not be the same actors. You could have Neo Soul and just have it be all Korean actors.
Connecting more broadly to some of the films we're discussing this cycle, it can be sensational enough if you have just one actor playing more than one role, as opposed to having multiple actors do it. Just maybe one person, maybe Tom Hanks appears in every different story, but and maybe Halle Berry appears similarly, but no one else does.
But I do have two thoughts though, which is I think that this is part of the selling point of this movie.
Yeah,
100%.
This movie did not do well at the box office. But I think it still perseveres because of this concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that it would have if it was a large ensemble piece with like 50 different actors. And two, I don't know that actors would have been as drawn to this movie because I think that, again, the featurettes I was watching, a lot of these actors are talking about how much fun they're having with being able to play different roles. They love it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say too, this came from a quote that Tom Hanks gave in one of these featurettes that I saw. He talked about how it felt like it was 3 months of repertory theater kind of crammed together. Now it's making me think also if this issue would feel quite the same in a theater production of something like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of it would, but I think also there's like particular allowances that we give theater performances and the way that characters have to double up or triple up in certain ways for things like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just very interesting to me. I think the fact that it was an attempt to take this concept from a book, it gives me an understanding of why it didn't jump out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading on the Wikipedia as well that before this was adapted to a film, or maybe early in the process, that David Mitchell, the author of the book, was convinced that it was unfilmable, which is a very interesting thing to consider. That, but then also that after the film was made, that he was very impressed with it and almost had forgotten his original vision because of what had been set to screen. To be clear, I think this movie, in a lot of ways, like it mostly lands the plane, but again,
except for the plane that Tom Hanks is in that blows up.
Good point. But where there are flaws, it feels like, you could say like the reach exceeds the grasp, or maybe that like, no, this project is within reach for its directors. They're just making some of the wrong choices in reaching for it. With some of the casting issues that we have acknowledged. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to imagine, like, how can you sell this movie as being one where the actors play multiple roles and not,
come up against some of these
flaws. Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is something that Maria-Elena said that I also thought, which is I think a lot of the kind of the race swapping and like race makeup is unnecessary to the plot.
Yeah.
I think that you can actually do this film very effectively without that element.
Oh, also to that point, it's not just cross-race casting, but like
cross-gender sometimes as well.
Cross-gender, in one particular case I can think of that's already been acknowledged, it kind of felt like having Hugo Weaving play the evil nurse in the 2012 plotline. It's like they're just doing Nurse Ratched.
Yeah, they're doing Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
That's what that's supposed to reference. Okay.
Yeah, it's
now
like
that makes a little more sense. I still hate it, but it makes sense.
You're like still bad, but
yeah, it's like 2144 feels kind of like Blade Runner. 2012 pays homage to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Mm-hmm. From the 1973 plot, I was kind of getting 3 Days of the Condor vibes.
Yeah, or like Parallax View.
Paranoia thrillers.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I think part of why I struggle to imagine this movie with a full ensemble is I think that the fact that they do it with the same actors makes it easy for the audience to interpret where this soul is going.
Yes.
Like, how do you get that across if it's always a different actor?
That's part of the reason why I feel like my brain was just like, go with it.
It's like in a
Go
book,
with it. Yeah.
I'm sure it's much clearer.
Yep.
Maria-Elena, do you have a thought?
No, I'm realizing why this overwhelmed my girlfriend, because she's a little bit face blind. She probably missed the part where the actors were playing the same, like she missed the through line that I got that made it not feel overwhelming for me. Oh,
interesting. Yeah.
So then if it's, a huge ensemble, then everybody is feeling that way, where it's like, well, I don't understand how these stories are connected.
Yeah. There were points where I still found maybe it was not offensive, but it was distracting. Choices made in playing some of the characters that are like a little difficult to take seriously. This is a movie where, like, as has sort of been acknowledged already, you see Tom Hanks really flex his varied acting chops, and that I think it's funny to see him play a Cockney gangster.
Oh, yes.
But the fact that role lasts only one scene, it's about as much as I could take of that character.
100%. The fact that he enters, it's like a jump scare. He comes in and he just goes, "Oi!" And because Dougie had a moment of like, is this also like a weird race thing? And I was like, I don't think so. I think it's just really weird characterization.
The facial hair choice, I think, is
it was giving Walter Sobchak from the
Well, and then very briefly, you can see that this gangster who's named is Dermot Hawkins. I can't not say that with a little bit of affectation, like. Yeah, Dermot Hawkins. That you see a few tattoos on his fingers, and one of them is a swastika.
Jesus, I did not notice
it's like
that.
you're going to establish that detail for a character who's there so briefly.
Again, unnecessary slurs. Why?
Yeah.
Well, to me, then I'm like, well, why is Cavendish willingly working with a fucking Nazi?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to be like, he's a recovered gangster, and it's different to be like, this man's a neo-Nazi.
Right.
Like, why are you publishing his book?
I think
what's in it?
I mean, clearly the publishing house was not doing well. They were probably grasping at straws, being like, this guy looks like he's going to write a spectacular book.
I feel like Dermot Hawkins, unironically wrote the book that Jeffrey Wright ironically writes in American Fiction. Obviously, discounting the element of race that informs that story.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's like that kind of character.
So we've already kind of been getting into some comparisons. Before we go to Comparison Corner, does anyone else have anything to add on this first point?
No, the only thing I'll say is that I think we've voiced a lot of criticisms, and I want to be clear, I do have praises for the movie that I will say in due time.
We will get to the positives of this movie.
Yes, we will get to them.
Got to get the weird shit out of the way.
Yeah. Well, I think we can officially begin our comparison corner now. This was a movie, admittedly, a lot of other movies came to my mind while watching it, and I'll probably do a very quick rundown of some of the less substantial comparisons, but I think the most substantial comparison I can think of is to a pretty recent movie called The Beast. This came out a few years ago. It was directed by a French filmmaker named Bertrand Bonello. It stars Léa Seydoux and George Mackay.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen it too?
Yeah, I've seen it, but I'm not totally following you yet, so continue.
Well, hear me out.
Okay.
This is another movie that takes place across several timelines.
That's true.
It's as opposed to 6, it is set in 3 eras. One of which is in the past in 1910, suitable to be a period drama.
Yeah.
One of the others is in 2014. And then there is a future sci-fi section in 2044 as well, 100 years before the Neo-Soul chapter of Cloud Atlas.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And also the other big detail here is that you have the principal actors playing a role in each of these timelines.
Yes.
There are implications of a transference of following past lives. And I think the sci-fi element of this story is developed a little more to explain why some of these, or if not why these transferences are happening, like how they are being accessed. And also, I think the shared themes of these plot lines are made much clearer in The Beast. Not that they're unclear at all points in Cloud Atlas, but there is a little more of a point made of the connections between some of these different storylines. There's no problematic cross-casting in The Beast.
Yeah.
Each of the different points in time that it takes place has kind of a different tone too. There are points where it feels kind of like a David Lynch movie. you could say it feels a little Blade Runner-y as well. And maybe there's kind of a Merchant Ivory vibe in like the 1910 section. But that is another movie, and it's also notably an adaptation of a Henry James novella. I don't know how close the source material is to the film itself, but I think that some of the more problematic implications of adapting something as sprawling as Cloud Atlas maybe don't exist in that case.
Yeah.
Check out The Beast. I think it's a great movie. I believe it's still streaming on the Criterion Channel.
Yeah, it's a great movie, and I totally, with the past lives thing, I follow you. I think one of the main differences is there's a sci-fi element to The Beast that connects the three stories directly.
Yes.
In that she's kind of going under and experiencing these past lives of hers directly. Whereas in this movie, it's a little more new agey.
Right. Yeah, and of all the different films with actors playing multiple roles that we're discussing, I think this is the only one where there is like kind of an essential dramatic irony that like only and I'm talking about Cloud Atlas again, to be clear, but that only the viewer really understands that all of these different people are connected. They don't know it about themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
For the most part.
The one that really jumped out to me was Sense8, which is a TV show made by the Wachowskis.
Wachowskis.
Taking this idea of people who are interconnected and impacting each other's storylines and stuff, but like compressing it all into the present by having 8 people be a hive mind with each other and able to dip into each other's lives, share experiences, share skills, get each other out of scrapes with the law and gangsters and whatnot. So it's got all of the like anti-capitalist, communitarian, seeing yourself through someone else themes that you could possibly want.
Nice.
And more loving shots of San Francisco, which is basically like another character in every Wachowski movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Duna Bay is also in
And
Sense8,
Duna Bay.
right?
Still given some weird cheesecake shots that I know a couple of people were like, no, that took me out.
I've heard some high praise for Sense8. I've got to check it out one of these days.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm going to go with one that has actually already been name dropped at the very top. And this expression has been said over and over throughout our conversation to a recent film called Past Lives. Celine Song's film from 2023. It is deservedly very well received. I think it's a really great film about, 2 childhood friends who lost connection when they moved away from each other as kids, and then they reconnected about like 10, 12 years after, and then lost connection again. And then consequently for the film's narrative, they make another connection later that is not nearly as strong, but because of the lives that they have lived at that point, there is something very weighty about it. And I feel like the concept that gets touched on in that film, Inyon, this idea that there is not as much randomness in the world that we think, and that notably the people that we meet and build relationships with might actually be several lifetimes in the making, to me feels very at home with what's going on in Cloud Atlas. Based on everything we've described too, Past Lives has a much more favorable Korean setting. And whatnot. But I think that the relationship between Nora and Hae-sung feels like something that could also be explored Cloud Atlas style. And they're both movies that bounce around in space and time and kind of move from character to character. Also, I think both these films are very much in control of their tone. I think it's one of the things that, like, watching both of them feel like strengths of the film. So yeah, I'm going to put Past Lives out there.
Nice.
Very cool.
Do you think that Celine Song has this slowly building sci-fi odyssey that she's going to create?
I don't know, but if she wants to go back to those characters, I'm down. Give it to me.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I went with a couple of comparisons of single stories in here. I mean, we already talked about how the Timothy Cavendish story obviously is referencing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but there is this Scottish sitcom that my parents love called Still Game, and they do an homage episode of Cuckoo's Nest that follows very similar beats to the Cavendish story, to the point that I'm like, is I did not look up when this episode of Still Game came out, if it was before or after this movie, because this is a show that's been on like 20 years, but it feels like one is maybe referencing the other because they are so similar. So in this episode of Still Game, an apartment complex where the show's characters live is demolished, and the complex makes a deal with a local retirement home that allows the displaced residents to stay there. But then once they get there, they no longer have autonomy, and they have to live under the strict rule of kind of a Nurse Ratched type, and they have to break out of the home, and then they break out of a home and they go to a local pub. And again, this is all set in Scotland, so it just feels like there are a lot of, once Cavendish gets into the retirement home, that part of the story just feels so similar to this particular episode of Still Game, which is one of the only episodes I've actually seen because my parents were like, we want you to watch this particular episode because it references Cuckoo's Nest so strongly.
Oh, wow. Very cool. I like that.
So that's fun. But then I also was thinking a lot in the final story and the Zachary story, which we'll get into. You know, I'm a little torn on. It reminds me a lot of this video game series that I really love called Horizon. The first Horizon game is called Horizon Zero Dawn, and you play as this young woman in this post-apocalyptic world that's been like cast out from her tribe as an infant for like a reason that you don't learn until later. And she's raised by a similarly outcast man, and her tribe is very rudimentary, and it is kind of the most rudimentary of the post-apocalyptic tribes in this world, and in that they shun the technology of the old ones, and they blame this technology for the eventual fall of humanity. And in this game, you as the main character kind of move through the story, and you explore these kind of abandoned bunkers and mines that teach you about this kind of old world, and like leads you to trying to send out a distress signal to the stars and anyone who may be listening. So there were a lot of parallels between these two, to the point that I'm like, these games come out after this movie, and it does feel like they're kind of pulling directly. But it's like a game series that I really, really enjoy. It's one of my favorites. And it's got like, I know you guys are not like super huge video game people, but I gotta tell you that this is a series that has an insane voice cast.
Oh, wow.
Like,
yeah, let's hear it.
Lance Riddick is an incredibly central character in this series, to the point that when he passed, people were like, but what are they going to do for the third Horizon game now that Lance Riddick has passed? You also have, we're bringing it back, Carrie-Anne Moss is a very central character in the second Horizon movie, or the second Horizon game, as is Angela Bassett. So you've just got a handful of like really huge, insane names that come in to do voice acting for this particular series. And the fact that it also brings in Trinity, I felt like I had to bring it back.
Well, I guess we have to broaden our horizons and play this game. Yeah. There's a series of games.
So far, there's only two.
Yeah, that's very compelling, though.
Thank you.
The comparison corner can also be the recommendation corner.
Sure.
Well, quickly before we go out of this, the other ones I had thought of. I think the second most substantial comparison that I thought of was to Wong Kar-wai's film 2046.
I've not seen this one yet.
I just recently saw it. It's very good. I quite enjoyed it, but it's some people, I think maybe even canonically, it's a spiritual sequel to In the Mood for Love.
Yeah.
But I think if you'll see it as separate, it's still a plenty interesting movie, and that it also is a movie about the creative process. It is, it features narration from the main character, who is a writer. And that there is, a mix between this futuristic world that he is writing that is set in the titular 2046 and what he is experiencing in his present, which is, I think, mostly throughout the 1960s. There are points in watching that movie where you're not really sure if it's his imagination or the reality, in a way that I think is very compelling. It's not exactly cross-casting, but you see interesting recurrences of characters in that movie that I think defy a lot of conventions of narrative. So I was thinking of 2046 watching Cloud Atlas, and then just a quick rundown of some other things I thought of. Well, for maybe obvious reasons, Everything Everywhere All at Once, the idea that there are characters in these, well, those are more like concurrent timelines, but in separate, places in the universe, all kind of speaking to one another through their actions. Kinds of Kindness,
Yeah.
Where it's maybe mostly for the cross-casting element, that there's not really a sense of like there being past lives in these stories, but that you have the same actors playing 3 different characters across separate stories. And some of those characters align pretty clearly. Others wildly contrast one another. And then the last film I have to shout out is one called The Actor, which is a pretty, I think, underseen movie that came out just last year, 2025, which stars Andre Holland. And this is more of like, it's directed by Duke Johnson, who co-directed Anomalisa with Charlie Kaufman. I think he was responsible for the stop motion animation element of that movie. And this is a movie where you see multiple actors playing the same roles, but it's meant to convey more of like a person's interiority, like different voices in their psyche. And I think maybe that's the only real comparison to Cloud Atlas, just the nature of its casting. But there are only so many movies that do it quite like that. I had to think of it. And unless anyone else has anything to shout out, I think this has been Comparison Corner.
Absolutely.
I think so. Maria-Elena, nothing? Anything else? You're good?
Honestly, I only thought of Pulp Fiction just on a very surface level. Like, it was my first introduction to nonlinear storytelling, which also was one of the ones that Emilio and I watched obsessively.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Well, that also has, I think, some problematic language issues here and there.
It's Tarantino.
Tarantino has already received a lot of criticism for that.
Yes, a whole other can of worms to open.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you guys, of the 6 stories, was there one that you felt you just connected with the most? And by contrast, I mean, I think we've gotten to a little bit of this here, but if there's a story that you felt you had the least amount of emotional connection to, I'd be interested in hearing that too.
I have a little trouble with the Frobisher storyline, honestly, just because I'm super over barrier gaze storylines. It's 2026. It's fucking Pride. I don't have time for this shit.
Like in June.
Of all times, this is true.
During gay Christmas. But honestly, though, I connected weirdly strongly with the post-apocalyptic one. Just because I think I really dig stories of like, I'm going through a little bit of a hope punk phase. Project Hail Mary kicked that one off for me.
Got it.
I'm really enjoying stories about like seeing us pull ourselves up out of the ashes and get to, for the Trekkies in the audience, like going from the eugenics wars in World War III to First Contact and post-scarcity Federation.
I love this. I love that.
Very nice.
Go for it.
Yeah, I liked this one too. I already said that I struggle with the dialect because I don't know that it's always used convincingly.
I actually liked the dialect.
You like
Controversial opinion. I also am a freak. I'm also a freak who really liked the dialect in oh god, what's the movie? Clockwork Orange. Thank you, Emilio.
Yeah.
That one I obsessively watched.
I remember when you read the Anthony Burgess book and you were
I still have it, yeah.
And you were like going back to the glossary of
because at the time I was taking Russian in high school.
I remember.
And so it's like I was making all those connections.
Right, totally.
Yeah, milk plus fella set and all that.
The dialogue annoyed the shit out of my girlfriend, I must say. Like I don't think I would have followed it if the subtitles weren't on. God help audiences in 2012.
Had to turn on subtitles for this entire movie. Not just for the post-apocalyptic one, mostly for that, but just for all of them. It moves too fast for me to comprehend.
Yeah, it moves very fast. And I think to me as well, the dialect in the post-apocalyptic plot was a barrier. I think that it was like
kind of was for me too. Yeah,
I can't buy Tom Hanks being like true. Like every time he said true, I was like, I don't know about this.
Also, it's like, are they trying to sound Southern? Are they?
That was one of the ones. Yes,
Halle Berry slips into Southern when she does this dialect. I think a lot in a way that I don't think Tom Hanks or other characters do as much, but I think she does in a way that hit my ear weird.
Despite the fact that it's Hawaii and it's like
again, they could have put it literally on any coastline.
Yeah, totally.
So that was a barrier to me in that plot line. But I think that I noticed something interesting about the plot lines I connected more with, which is that I think the 3 sections that were where principal photography was directed by Tom Tykwer. Those were the parts that I think I felt the most along for the ride with.
Interesting.
I don't know that it has anything to do with any distinction of his directing, but yeah, 1936, 1973, 2012, those to me I thought were the strongest stories of the bunch. I kind of enjoyed the Frobisher. More than kind of, I was with it for the Frobisher story.
I think I'm very familiar with some people, I think, who have found and unfortunately have had to navigate some like Vivian Ayres type of dynamics with older artists that are more like parasitic than helpful, like that don't really want to give you like a hand up. They're there because they see that you're willing to do a lot of work that they would rather not do.
Yeah.
So I felt very personally drawn to that one as well.
Yeah.
I am gonna go with Maria-Elena on this one. When you had sent the question in advance, Emilio, and I was like, which was my least favorite? And I was like, it might be Frobisher, but I think they're all strong to varying extents. Like, I don't think that one is bad by any means, but I think there's something about, I understand that it's very important to the next story that he's writing these letters to the name escapes me, to Sixsmith.
Yeah.
But there's something about the heavy narration of that one that I think I butt up against a little bit. And I'm less in the story because it's more like it's being told to me. But I understand that the letters are important because then they have to appear in the next story.
Right.
That actually worked really well for me because it was a period piece that felt a little bit like a Jane Austen novel, and Jane Austen loves epistolary stuff. So like, but I totally see how it would take you out.
I was into the fact that the narration is all like, it's not just narration for its own sake. It's directed to another character.
Right.
Yeah.
I think to me, like, I thought that gave it a nice dimension of character. And, on Frobisher's part, I also, maybe some of it's just like Ben Whishaw is a great actor. I thought that he was a very good choice for the role.
He's very good at
like
this.
he's giving a really solid performance.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think this is bad by any means. But I think his performance keeps me engaged even when maybe other parts of this one could have lost me.
And I also think that like the two more prominent Jim Broadbent appearances in the movie, I think he does a great job in both roles.
I think I love him.
Vivian Ayres and then as Cavendish in the 2012
Totally,
plot. Yeah. Another example of some really great casting. See, I'm getting to my praises. And then the 1973 plot, well, that was maybe like on the whole the one where I just kind of felt like, let's fucking go. Like I was just really down for that ride. I think maybe of all the different Halle Berry parts, that was the one. I think that maybe she was the best
the most
cast.
to do. Yeah.
I think,
she's the comet in that one.
Right. She's the comet. I think, it's not just that, but I think that she, like, it felt like a very natural role for her. Also the fact that you see Sixsmith as an older character, and not just that he's there, but that he is serving this interestingly consequential role.
I think James Darcy is doing great work as both young and old Sixsmith.
That just maybe felt like one of the stories that was the steadiest on its feet in this whole series of narratives. I think it is connected to the greater plotline or not, just compelling. And also Hugo Weaving plays a very Agent Smithy character.
Yeah, totally. I was down for that, man. I'm like, any way that guy's like villainous, just give it to me.
But they make him redheaded just like for fun.
Yeah.
They're like, no, throw a wig on him.
It makes
we got plenty.
It feels very Bond villainy.
Yeah.
Totally.
I also just love in that scene the whole exchange where he puts the gun up to the door.
Yeah.
And she's like right behind it. And there's just this very tense, like 30 seconds or so.
The score there is perfect.
Really good. I know.
There's like this phasing effect that's going on. It's really good.
Yeah. I just, that was one of the moments I think where I felt most connected and drawn to the film. I was like, whoa, man, what's going on? Give it to me,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Am I remembering correctly that there's a shot in Bound where the two women are shot with a door in between them?
I
Wicked for Good? No, I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, Bound.
Yeah. True.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, well, very in character for the Wachowskis. And very briefly in that, you get Ben Whishaw as the record store clerk.
So
I love this.
Yeah.
Let's
I'll
go.
let you talk about it first.
No, it's fine. Maria-Elena, you said at the top, like, sappy. That moment, like, kind of got to me.
Totally.
I'm like, the composer of this work that gets his authorship basically taken away from it comes back as a appreciator of the work.
Yeah.
And somebody who unknowingly wants to put it out into the world, to me, was like chef's kiss.
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
Give it to me, man.
I think that was
loved it.
the best cast small role in the whole movie.
I think so
Totally.
too.
Yeah.
And very well performed as well.
Yeah.
And then part of the reason why I like the Cavendish story too is that, like, so we discussed some of the weirdness of how it begins, but I think that is maybe, of all the stories in this series, one of the more grounded ones where
It's
I think
grounded,
Yeah.
it's lighter, it's comedic. I think it's a good palate cleanser.
It is.
Edited into everything else, which has a lot of action and a lot of peril.
And and because it has lower stakes, it feels like it can keep a grip on itself a little more steadily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love that story sets up this film that later gets kind of like misinterpreted or kind of co-opted, which to me just felt like kind of a nod to Scientology. This, I don't know why that was like my read on it, which is that like his account of all of this, then of his like perceived peril, then becomes a film that gets understood by these people in the future as this like way of kind of like getting more like autonomy in your life. And then it creates this really weird ripple effect. And I love that it was like from this bizarro brotherly quarrel. It's, to me, I think is just like one of the fun in jokes of the film. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just like kind of worked for me.
I interpreted it as so much more profound. Like for me, I'm like, and it is funny because he's obviously like an unreliable narrator and he's like writing and portraying himself to be like way like suaver and cooler than than we see him stumble over the Incarceration Act. And then obviously in the like film within a film, Tom Hanks is delivering it much more steadily.
And I love that they showed the Tom Hanks version of that line before we got Jim Broadbent's reading of it. So that you could see like how absolutely bonkers it was in real life.
I will not be subjected to criminal abuse.
Yeah. But I really like how in universe, supposedly like this story becomes such a classic that it sustains through time and is like one of the few movies that people can access, even people that don't have wider access to art, and that they can be inspired by like a single line in a single clip of this film that they know nothing about, but it speaks to them because it mirrors like what they're experiencing. Like they're trapped in the same way kind of
that this writer
that
says
Cavendish had been trapped.
Yeah.
So
and and that's the film that is made is titled I have to read it in an English accent, The Ghastly Ordeal of Timothy Cavendish,
which is I think what in the Cloud Atlas the book, all of these stories have an actual title. And I think that's the actual title of this story in the full novel.
It's a little bit like in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where each chapter has its own title, and that, as we acknowledged when we discussed that movie, that like some of those stories have like mostly pretty sobering endings, but then the Tom Waits chapter is one that has a glimmer of light.
Yeah.
And that I think the Cavendish story is one. You know, the endings vary. I think there are more happy endings in the Cloud Atlas collection than there are in Buster Scruggs, but I think the resolution of the Cavendish story is one of the more uplifting ones.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like kind of half and half, I think, between uplifting and dire.
Yeah.
Right.
We haven't talked really about the Sonmi story, but again, yellow face aside, I really enjoy this one.
Sure.
I think, as you were talking about earlier, Julian, and I think Maria-Elena, like this is kind of the most classic Wachowski of the bunch. Like it I think pulls the most from their existing work at this point. And the fact, as we talked about earlier, like Sanmi as a character in this story, like kind of being thrown into having to become a revolutionary and be an inspiration for people, and then carries over into the next story to become like a godlike figure.
Right.
That to me is more like what you're saying with the Scientology thing, where her words they both inspire, but also are like kind of being misinterpreted over time. People don't have the full context over time about how this was like a very short-lived revolution for her.
And also that like there's this varies. Like there are some stories that kind of have this, but there's an interesting telling of the Sanmi story that there's a framing device within that narrative where she is recounting all of this in her final interview with an officer of this unanimity that has taken over the Society of Neo Soul. It feels very like Blade Runner meets 1984. I've seen cases where framing devices are great and also where they take away, but I think when you have these interwoven stories, it's interesting how that can vary too. And we've acknowledged as well that Cavendish narrates his own story from what seems to be a better place, because he finally gets together with his long lost love, and
who is Susan Sarandon.
Yes, so Susan Sarandon.
He's definitely,
I get it.
He's doing well for himself.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
In ways that Sanmi and Frobisher are not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So much of Sanmi's revelation that we're kind of starting to talk about is repeated throughout the film, and I think it emphasizes a lot of the themes that are trying to be underlined in this movie. And one of these quotes is, "Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others." So how do you guys think each character's life and like kind of the arc of their soul throughout the whole film and throughout time is changed by their encounters with the other characters?
A small element of this movie that popped up for me was Louisa Ray, that her father was a reporter as well, and a reporter of note. I guess somebody that had a particular name, somebody that Sixsmith was like, "Oh, like your dad must be very proud of you."
Yeah.
That was one of those lines that jumped out to me where you're not really hit over the head that like this is part of the grander design of the film, which makes me think that this idea that there are elements of our lives, as you say, that are not our own, that there's conditioning that we have based on the people who raise us and the things that are important to them that suddenly become important to us when we come of age to make our own decisions about things.
Yeah, like when Joe comes to her apartment and he kind of has her restrained, and then she fights back and he says to her something like, you're your father's daughter.
Exactly.
Like something kind of like that.
Yeah, very similar. So
yeah,
that it follows her a little bit. It's sort of, there's a shadow that she feels like she's living with there.
It's also, I think, inspirational for her, where she's like, when she's confronted with difficult choices, she's like, she both directly says to Sixsmith, and I think kind of says to herself later, where she's like, what would my dad do here?
Right.
Like, he guided me.
Right.
It's not just that she's in his shadow. She's like, I want to make him proud.
Right. So giving me slight Guy Pearce in LA Confidential vibes, right? That somebody who has put a standard out in the world that they feel like they live up to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when you track the transference of that soul, then she plays a character named Ovid in 2144, who I don't remember.
Ovid removes Sanmi's collar.
Oh, okay.
He got like a little like spinny eyepiece.
Yeah.
And he's got like a laser. And I didn't realize it was her until the credits.
And then she plays Merinim in the post-apocalyptic plot line. And there's just, I think, this gradual sense that, like, she plays these characters who become progressively, or maybe just continue to be morally upstanding in one way or another. Yeah,
and at first I was like, well, Ovid is that, he breaks that, that's confusing. But no, he's working with the Union revolutionaries because he removes her collar. So I'm like, well, I guess, like, this still tracks.
Yeah, I guess Ovid's a little bit like Joe Napier in the 1973 plot line. But then like some of these other like evolutions of the soul are bumpier. Well, actually, I don't know that this one is quite the bumpiest, but I want to talk a little bit about the characters that Jim Sturgis plays.
Okay.
Because, well, like the first person and the comet that he plays, Adam Ewing, in the 1849 plot line. So we haven't said very much about this one yet. This I actually thought was another one of the weaker points of the film.
Yeah.
For some reasons that we've acknowledged that, like, you know, some of the language around race in it, you know, feels jarring and misapplied. And I like another word that I was thinking of for that plotline is it felt kind of glib to me. Is that it sort of felt like the nature of the story. Like I get that, you know, in terms of how it's written, that like the heart is in the right place, but with this story of there's, you know, an enslaved person who becomes a stowaway on Ewing's ship, and then, you know, they have to go against a mostly racist cohort in this, you know, and become this harmonious pair, and then Ewing is, you know, he evolves into someone who's going to fight for abolition. It's like, okay, great, but it's, you know, giving a little bit of like a Green Booky vibe. I think it felt like sort of a story that like this, you know, for something that deals with like one of the most horrific elements of human history, that it just sort of feels like it is padding on this very easy resolution to it.
Or that it's choosing to tap something like very complicated and trying to mine it for just like a nice, tidy story of someone's consciousness awakening.
As shorthand for character development.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Can I make a counterpoint in that I totally see where this is coming from, but I think if we're looking at the arc of this soul over time, that this is not just like a button on the first story. Like and in the Sanmi story is once again, like at that point, he is a revolutionary. Like so I think what it's attempting to do, whether or not it does it successfully, I think is up for debate. I think what it's attempting to do is say like this character, his journey as Ewing opens up this soul to the possibilities of like radicalization in a positive way of like pushing back
down
against
the line,
pushing back against like systems of oppression. And this is like his entry point into that.
I agree with you. And that actually, I'm glad you said it, because that actually gets to the next part of my point.
Excellent.
That it's like, I guess, you know, the soul that we see emerge with Ewing and then transfer to a bunch of different characters is one of the more maybe consistent arcs of a soul that we see throughout the story. That, I mean, there are like, as with most of these actors, there are a few appearances that feel more just nominal and like they're because they have to be there. But then he, you know, in the Cavendish plotline, he plays the as he's credited Highlander in the bar, who like once there's I can't remember his name now, but one of Cavendish's friends from the nursing home who's broken out with him creates a diversion in there.
Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Meeks. Yes, that Jim Sturgis plays the Highlander who kind of joins in the protest after you know, he's created this diversion, and then helps to take down the not Nurse Ratched and her cohort. And then, as you pointed out, Madeline, yes, he plays He Ju Chang in the Sanmi plotline, and where he's, it seems like, the most fully realized as a revolutionary.
I mean, I think that also I wanted to talk a little bit about Tom Hanks's character arc over time.
Yep.
Because I think that his is interesting in that in the earliest story, he is a villain.
Yes.
He is just as villainous in that story as like Hugh Grant or Hugo Weaving are in other stories. And then in our latest story, he is the comic character, and he is portrayed as the hero, a somewhat complicated hero. Even in that story, he has to have an arc where he kind of starts with some cowardice and has to kind of redeem himself. But over time, like, I think it's really interesting because I think that the 1973 plot line has the potential to be a major turning point for him, because he writes like right before he's in a plane crash. He's writing, he has what I would say a really great monologue. And he says, "Yesterday, I would have never believed I would do what I'm doing today. Each encounter suggests a new potential direction." And he goes on to say that he's in love with Louisa Ray, and he says, "I just met her, and yet I feel like something important has happened to me."
Right.
And so I think that love, and for him, like kind of instantaneous love, gives him the potential of heroism that's been kind of dormant for him in these past lives. But then in the next life, and I'm like, I don't know.
Or like 4 or 5 lives down the line.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm like, I don't know if this is because, again, he dies immediately after having this kind of revelation. And like, he was probably involved in some really shady shit with the nuclear reaction company. And he only has like a day to like redeem himself after meeting Louisa Ray. So I guess then over the next lifetime, when he comes back as Dermot Hoggins,
I was just going to say, he comes back as a total shitbag.
Exactly. Yeah. Then it like
he's got to work himself back.
Exactly.
Back
so that messes up my point a little bit.
Well, you know what?
I mean, that's how personal growth goes, right? There's always a little bit of relapse.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Look, when you're confronted with Halle Berry, it's going to do something to you on a
we're all going to fall in love with Halle Berry instantaneously and be like, she's changed me.
Do we think it was intentional that I don't know if there were the 2 stars with like the biggest stars of 20 in the movie, like that they got the most concrete kind of arcs to them?
I think that's intentional for sure. I think the fact that both of those actors, their souls have pretty solid arcs, but also that they are paired together, I think is fully intentional.
Yeah, totally. Also speaks to Jim Sturgis's prominence at the time, that he gets maybe the closest to that of anyone else.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, then in the Zachary story, it's like he is reunited with her. Like, and you know, we see Dermot Hoggins clock her at the party, but they don't speak. And he very soon murders someone and then has to go to prison. So he doesn't
off the market.
Again, she doesn't have the power to save him from afar.
No.
And that seems like a really big responsibility because this guy sucks.
Yeah.
But then
he's not ready for that moment.
But then in the Zachary story, they're reunited in the strongest way that they have been at all. And that again changes something in him. Cool. And I think it gives him the potential to finally be the hero that he could have been this whole time.
Right. Yeah. And the framer of the bookends of this movie as we see it play out.
Very cool.
Are we feeling like shouting out some little details now?
I got one that jumped out to me.
Go for it.
I really liked when the Jim Broadbent Cavendish publisher character, he's trying to get money to pay off Hoggins and his goons. It sounds like he's calling an auction house and he's like trying to sell the writing desk of Charles Dickens, like his personal writing desk.
Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah. And he gets told, he's like, actually, they already have that like in stock or whatever. And he goes, oh, well, what if I were to tell you I had the desk from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? And then he gets hung up on.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest laugh I had in the whole movie.
While you're talking about Cavendish, that and maybe one scene before that when he is cornered by those goons in the bathroom.
Total Big Lebowski vibes.
Well, yes. I mean, it's like it was down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Yeah.
But like, sure. Like, that's actually not the other movie I thought of first when that scene occurred. And there's actually another movie we discussed very recently that also features a character being assaulted by having a plunger faced in their mouth.
Oh,
yeah.
I wrote
was
this
like,
down
I've
too.
seen this recently.
I wrote this down too. Beef.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah.
When the titular Phantom, Winslow Leach, accosts Beef in a bathroom
Very
and holds him up
Psycho style. Yeah.
Yes, by placing a plunger on his mouth. And what were the odds that we were going to cover 2 movies so close together that both have that very specific act of violence in them?
Yeah. Yes, I had the same thing. Wrote it down too.
While we're talking about Cavendish, one moment that I like on my rewatch that is another like connecting thread between multiple stories. I think it's the first time when he's trying to escape before he's kind of attacked by the like goonish big bodyguard guy. He's calling into the old folks' home. They're all kind of looking out the window and he's yelling, "Soylent Green is people! Soylent Green is people!" Which is so funny. And then in the Sanmi story.
Oh, definitely.
It is revealed.
Soylent Green is people.
That Soylent Green is people.
Great point.
Yeah, very
Great
nice.
Point.
Love it.
Yeah. And, well, talking maybe not about Cavendish, but about the other most prominent Jim Broadbent appearance in the movie, that when he plays Vivian Ayres in the 1936 plot line, that, well, I just have to say this is more of like something to do with my own personal knowledge than the movie itself, but now I know what an amanuensis is. Despite this being a type of role I was familiar with, that exact word I learned with this movie.
I did as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same here.
Same.
I think I referred to it as a scribe earlier.
Yeah. Sort of like apprentice scribe, like, kind of, some of each of those things. But
it's the role that Frobisher is given.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, this movie really only has one scene of this that I'm about to mention, but to the extent that we have to talk about instrument playing accuracy, that I don't think it's Ben Whishaw playing the piano there, that you see a set of hands that are cut away from him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But to praise a little bit of maybe, if not playing, still musical accuracy, that Ayres requests his melody be played in G minor.
Yeah.
At first, just to kind of create some tension, Frobisher plays this dissonant
Something
thing
kind of weird
that kind of made me think of Black Christmas.
I was
where,
like, I still liked it.
yeah, it's like
I did too. I was like,
the people in it are not supposed to like it, but I'm like, well, I'm open-minded and I like this.
Yeah, that's a 2026 listener right there.
Hey, I mean, hey, Arnold Schoenberg was alive before
that's
this.
That's a good point. Yes,
but then after that happens, the more consonant piece that Frobisher then plays is in fact in G minor.
Yeah, and when Ayres is telling him, vocalizing the time signature also, he's like, it's like 3 bars of 3/4 and then 2 bars of 4/4 and then back to 3/4, and I was like, oh, that's what I heard.
Yep.
Yes. And this is all, steps towards the composition of the Cloud Atlas Sextet. I love that it's a sextet too.
Yeah, that took me a while.
For
I'll be honest. I got that on my rewatch.
Sextet for 6 stories. But as we have acknowledged earlier, the fact that it becomes diegetic music and that it has these ripples into other parts of the story, especially Ben Whishaw appearing as a record store clerk. Just more praise for the musical content of this film.
Cool.
I also watched the DVD extras where they go into a lot of detail about the Book of Sonmi.
Yeah,
I thought that was so cool. For people who haven't seen this, the cover of the book is made from the collars that they wear. The pages of the book are made from the fabricants' clothing, like the clothing they wear, like the clothing they wear to their death. And the writing is stitched from those little like colored highlighted bits of their hair.
Kind of highlight strands.
Yeah. So like,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like half-baked thoughts about like taking parts of themselves to make a revolution for the next generation. I haven't fully thought that through, but it appears on screen for like 5 frames, but just the level of detail is just beautiful.
I think it's so cool because on the surface level, we see that Zachary's like kind of Valley's people tribe, they follow Sanmi. But what all of that implies is that her revolution, the revolution that she kind of became a leader for, did reach the fabricants. Like it did do something. She did not just die in vain only to be worshipped in a complicated way 150 years later. Like she was able to communicate with her people.
Yeah, and the interviewer that she's speaking to, I forget his name, I'm sorry.
Archivist Park.
Thank you. And he is instrumental in shaping that revolution.
Yeah.
One of his last lines to her is, "You have no followers," or like, "Nobody's going to believe this story." And she says, "Somebody already does."
Yeah.
This is a bizarro detail that I want to bring up, but Madeline, you might be aware of this too. The Wachowskis grew up blocks away from us.
Shut up.
You and I. You didn't know
I'd forgotten that. I knew they.
Yes.
I remember they grew up in Chicago because Chicago street names were all over
Yes, in the
all
Matrix
over the
and all that
Matrix.
stuff. Yeah.
Really?
No,
they grew up in wow.
They literally grew up in Beverly, which is where Madeline and I grew up in Chicago's South Side. We grew up at 108th and Hoyne. They grew up at 93rd and Damon.
Shut up. Oh my God.
As the crow flies, that's about 2.5 miles.
I guarantee you I've walked past that.
I know. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. They grew up very, very, very close to where we grew up.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I've got just two last things I'll shout out before we transition. One of them is, despite some of the problematic details that we've acknowledged about the 1849 plotline, that David Gyasi as the character Autua in that story, he does get one really great moment when he is proving his skills as a sailor upon the sails.
Yeah.
That is, whatever you think about the ramifications of that story and the way it's told, he does get that great action sequence there.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
It's very
cool.
fun to watch.
Yeah, well filmed and everything.
And I like that it's cut with Sanmi and Chang on like the
on the walkway.
Or the walkway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obviously like a parallel with like kind of the ship's hull. I don't know ship parts. The big.
I know what you're talking about. The ship sail.
The thing that holds
the mast,
the sail.
The
mast. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's
anyway,
go roll with that.
They're similarly long and skinny.
Yeah. There was
and people climbing all over them.
Before we were on the mics, that we were chatting in the lounge at the place where we work with a coworker of ours named Rose. Hi, Rose. About who made a reference to Go Gadget.
Yeah.
And Inspector Gadget. And I said there was something in the movie we're discussing tonight that kind of made me think of that, and this is that scene.
And reminder, Rose's all-time favorite movie is The Matrix.
Oh, yeah, great point. Yeah,
that's where I thought you were going with this at first.
Well, that I guess I
nice.
You
were
inevitably was.
Yes, yeah.
But that gadget that they send across the crevice between two buildings in 2144. I love that special effect.
Totally,
that was a very cool scene. And the last thing I want to shout out is this is just kind of an interpretation of a character that I feel like, given the theme of this episode cycle, we have to acknowledge, which is that there's only really one story within these six that has, perhaps if not in the sense of appearance, just in the sense of character development, a doppelganger, which is the post-apocalyptic one where we have Zachary Bailey being spoken to by old Georgie. Where it's like, no, old Georgie does not look like him, but the idea of having this kind of shadow self, like kind of the Hyde to his Jekyll, which, given some of the costuming of that character, I think there's like a not so subtle implication of that there.
Sure.
I just think it's interesting that, it's like that's clearly a sci-fi chapter of the story, but that there's this element of fantasy in there that's clearly like borrowing some aesthetics from a very separate time.
Yeah.
In a way that weirdly, like, whatever quibbles you can have with other parts of that, I did not mind that.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's just,
same.
There's a part of me, maybe I'm just kind of amused by the big swing of it.
Yeah.
And then there's this arc within that story of Zachary gradually getting over the negative thoughts that old Georgie manifests and, taking power for himself. It's making me think now of Jojo Rabbit and like like Hitler as an imaginary friend to the titular character in that, and also the arc of that story. I think there's a little parallel there.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I had one last thing. We talked already about how a lot of these stories are being written by people in them, and I didn't realize until my rewatch that the Louisa Ray story is being written about, not by her, by Javier Gomez, the kid that jumps through her balcony. And the way you know this is that he sends that manuscript to Cavendish. We see Cavendish on the train on his way, I guess, to the retirement home,
yeah.
with a manuscript, and on the front it says like a Louisa Ray mystery by Javier Gomez.
Whoa!
I thought that was
very
cool.
nice.
These are the kind of little details that we look for.
Yes,
and also
well done.
And we have to acknowledge the irony that the Cockney gangster that he has somehow been roped into being the publisher for. Despite the conceit of this story, that he has the line, "I don't give a fuck what happens when I'm dead. I want people to buy me book now."
Fair.
Yeah, success. But yeah, he got what he wanted.
But it doesn't matter what he wants because
money.
this universe is going to transfer his soul to somewhere better.
Yeah.
All right. Is that all of our small details? Can we start sharing additional universes? There's already a lot going on
here. Yes. I can get this started if you want.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I, as was just stated, I feel like there's so many different ways that we could take this. I feel like you could just Cloud Atlas rule anything kind of going forward too. I feel like this movie totally sets that up. I'm going to try to keep it in universe here. So we meet Joe Napier. We see that he's one of the heads of security for the Swanake Corporation here. And after all the events of Cloud Atlas, knowing that he's had to supply cover for very, very bad people, and that, he's had to reach out past himself in order to put Louisa Ray, in a better place, Joe decides that the security racket is not for him going forward. He has a growing consciousness that is going to force him out of this line of work. He moves out of the Bay Area altogether. In fact, he moves all the way out east. He settles in a quieter Rhode Island town and decides to go by his middle name, Charlie. This guy wants a fresh start from all this. Charlie finds some steady work. He gets out into the community and he meets a divorced woman named Sheila. And they hit it off and they end up getting married. And Charlie settles into a generally happy and chill life as a stepfather to her high school aged kids. When Sheila's daughter comes of dating age, she becomes the object of affection for a nerdy high schooler named Ted, who, against all odds, succeeds in asking this young woman to prom. But a wardrobe mishap that Ted suffers brings Charlie into the picture, mostly because he is the nearby adult who happens to also possess the distressed organs in question. And unfortunately, none of his background in security and surveillance can prepare him to help first responders identify the Frank from the beans. Does anybody know what this is?
I don't know this.
I think I'm stumped here.
Marina, do you know what this is?
I'm going to randomly guess there's something about Mary.
Yeah!
Shut up, really?
Yes. Yes.
A+.
So Keith David, who plays a couple of characters in Cloud Atlas, and he's got a much more kind of comedic presence, obviously. And there's something about Mary. And he's only in it for a couple minutes, but he absolutely kills it. So I feel like I want Joe Napier to have a new start. I feel like he's earned it. I think he's earned it. Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about Joe Napier, so I've got another scenario to outline that actually I think very conveniently does not mess with the one that you have just laid out.
Awesome.
Fantastic. In great Cloud Atlas style.
Yes. Yeah. But a little similarly, I didn't go with this sort of transferring lives conceit that is followed in Cloud Atlas. I kept it a little closer to how we usually do it. Or not a little closer, I kept it to exactly the way we usually do in Unlikely Shared Universe. So Louisa Ray receives a significant boost in her effort to expose the conspiracy surrounding the Swanake nuclear power plant from head of security Joe Napier, a cog in the machine who goes against his superiors in a sly act of goodwill. Clearly skilled in the art of working against the machine to which he belongs, he has passed these skills along to his son, who he's been clever enough to bestow with the pseudo-surname Childs. Lending his talents as a mechanic to scientific research companies, Childs is sent on an assignment some years after his father's nuclear disaster preventing act of valor that brings him to the icy front of Antarctica. While this research mission appears to be mostly dead in the water, or perhaps dead on the ice, things become mysterious when a Norwegian pilot chases a dog onto the base of this American team and engages them in a futile altercation. Following this event, the research team investigates this Norwegian base nearby and finds a bizarre crater coupled with a vaguely humanoid corpse, which they bring with them for further investigation. Soon after, suspicions arise that this dog that wandered onto their base may not be what it seems, and when those suspicions are confirmed to gruesome effect, Childs takes it upon himself to incinerate this problem dog that seems to be the source of the problem. Sadly, whatever curse of biology that has befallen this research team continues to manifest, and after further investigation, it becomes clear that they are under attack from a malignant shape-shifting entity that could take the form of any one of them. As shared trust erodes, and these crew members are forced to test one another's allegiances and the integrity of their corporeal forms, Childs fiercely sticks to his principles as he and his cohort aim to figure out the true nature of this entity, which, due to incapability of proper classification, they can only refer to as a thing. Just saw it a few weeks ago, also at the Metrograph, like many things I see. I love John Carpenter movies, but I haven't seen enough of them, and this is me slowly working to fill those gaps. I get the hype. The Thing is an excellent movie.
Great movie. I love The Thing.
Yeah.
But I watched The Thing and I'm like, there's no women in this movie, not even for 1 second.
Yeah.
And to an extent, I understand why, but I'm like, hey, they made it work in Alien.
True.
It would not have been that hard. All right. So I'm like, we have an opportunity here with this movie to dig into reincarnation. In addition to me going with the reincarnation theme, it also has a bit of our normal style. So the rules of reincarnation in this universe are somewhat murky. We see these souls reincarnated as different races and genders, but who's to say they can't be reincarnated in a more traditional way, different species?
Let's go.
We see Robert Frobisher meet his tragic end at his own hand, and we later see a reincarnated soul appreciating the very sextet that Frobisher finished right before his passing. This record store clerk had a long, happy life and dies peacefully many years later, creating an opening for this soul to find a new vessel. And so we venture to the jungles of Peru, where this soul has been born anew as a unique species of bear, which is intelligent and capable of human speech. After the death of his uncle, our young bear sets off for London, perhaps somewhat drawn to the country. As they're figuring it out, they start laughing.
Yes.
Drawn to the country where his former self was born. He carries with him a hat given to him by his late uncle by a British explorer, and the young bear is determined to find the owner of said hat. This search leads him to an antique shop and, more notably, its owner. He feels both drawn to and suspicious of this man, almost as if their souls had had a violent altercation in a past life. And perhaps this store owner has recently entered the antique business after escaping a nearby retirement home. But this universe is all about healing journeys.
This is amazing.
Thank you. These two become friends. The young bear sees a pop-up book of London in the man's shop and starts working as a window cleaner in order to save enough money to buy the book for his Aunt Lucy's 100th birthday. However, one night the antique shop is burglarized and the book is taken. The young bear, as the assumed culprit, is sentenced to 10 years in prison. But this soul has been cleansed throughout time and is no longer a common thief. The actual culprit is a soul that we know that has not yet become pure. Previously a slave owner and later the corrupt head of a nuclear reactor facility.
Let's go.
Even after this lifetime, he may go on to take advantage of fabricant diner servers or lead a tribe of cannibals. But the young bear need not worry. As with other heroes of the Cloud Atlas stories, he may get by with a little help from his friends.
I love this.
This is one of the best unlikely shared universes that has ever been done.
Thank you.
That was fucking epic.
Thank you. So this is Paddington. Paddington and Paddington 2.
Thank you, because you brought Hugh Grant back into the picture.
Because originally I had thought about doing Paddington, and I was like, I'm not going to do Paddington.
No,
and then I realized that there are 3 Paddington actors in this movie, so I was like, I got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you're talking about Ben Whishaw and different species. I thought at first you were going to go for the lobster.
I could have done that, yes. Although he does start as human.
He does.
There.
Yeah, but there's still that element of transference and that. Like,
I mean,
not
I
the
thought
same.
about that. I love the lobster, so I could have done that. But this was right there.
This had to be what it was. This was incredible.
To be clear, I haven't seen any of the Paddington movies, but it was clear what you were talking about.
They're great. I have not seen Paddington in Peru. I don't know if that one is as good as the first 2, but the first 2 are great.
Yes.
Famously, at least at some point, maybe not still, but maybe had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, definitely.
Emilio,
I'm with you. Yep.
Is Gabriel into
Paddington? Have they been introduced to that yet?
You know what? He has not been introduced to Paddington yet. What are we doing right now? Ratatouille. We're on Ratatouille right now, which he's liking, and that is also anthropomorphic animal with winning over adults. Yeah, with like interests and talents. Exactly. Yeah.
And
so I think maybe there's a door open right there for us to go walk right through with Paddington.
And when he comes of age to see everything everywhere all at once, he'll become a
Raccacoonie.
fan of Raccacoonie. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts on this film that we gave our best shot at here?
I knew going into this episode that, like, I think I understood that we were going to have praises, we were going to have criticisms, but I knew one thing for certain was that this was going to be a very layered discussion.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it after doing my watch and rewatch. I'm glad we did. I think that it's interesting to see how like-minded we all are about the strengths and weaknesses of this movie. This is one I think it's interesting in assessing how people have received it, that despite its flaws, it seems like a movie that fans of the Wachowskis are open to come back to. And it's weirdly, I feel like I don't see myself changing my mind about the critiques I have where it's relevant in this movie, but would I watch it again? Sure, I would. There is still something compelling about it, and I think for where it is an innovative and well-made movie, I think there are like some real things to learn from it.
Yeah, this movie really grew on me in the last 5 days because that first hour I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I've now gotten to a point where I really enjoyed watching this with some reservations.
Yes.
And because at first I was like, did I spend $9 to own a movie that I'm not gonna like, but no, I'm very glad I own this now on Blu-ray and I can revisit it if I feel like it, because I thought it was a good time.
Yeah.
Look, I always enjoy watching whatever the Wachowskis put out, even if it is a little bit messy, even if there's parts that I'm like, why did you make that choice? These folks swing for the fences, and sometimes they knock the ball out of the park. Sometimes it lands somewhere in the outfield, but like, you're going to have a good time every time. So I really appreciate this opportunity to revisit it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us to do so.
And I'll just round off and say that I really was on board for what this movie was going for. I think I was treating it kind of like an experimental film.
Yeah.
I was giving it all the leeway that I would probably give a film of that nature, and was generally won over by what was going on in it. So I've only seen it once. I feel like there's a lot that I missed, but also I don't know, for these mise-en-scene films, I kind of like actually just seeing it once. and just being like, how did this land for me literally on just the first watch? And it was mostly actually very positive for me. So I would definitely like to watch this movie again, although finding 3 hours to watch a movie is hard, man. So anyway,
three fragmented hours, maybe not so much, but like,
but this is a weird movie to see fragmented.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would, but anyway. So yes, definitely.
Well, we've talked about this being our Mise-Unseen episode, and listeners, if you know how we usually organize our cycles, you'll know that the next on the docket is our suggestion box, where we engage with a movie that one or two of us have seen before, but someone else in our group has not. And as was stated earlier, we're finally covering a lot of filmmakers who maybe we've had on the back burner for a while, but we're finally officially getting to them. And the next film that we are going to discuss is one directed and written by someone who was mentioned at the top of this episode, and who I think we are all big fans of and have appreciated many of his films, and that would be David Cronenberg.
Yes.
And if you're tracking the themes here, David Cronenberg and films with actors playing dual roles, you'll probably put the pieces together to determine that we are going to talk about Dead Ringers, his film from 1988 starring Jeremy Irons in the titular two roles. Titular, in a kind of a broad way, but
in what the title of the film is describing.
Exactly.
He is those two things.
Yeah. To me, I think, if you're going to engage with, films with actors playing dual roles and the themes of twins and doppelgangers, this to me is an essential film to discuss in that category. I'm excited to finally do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am going to be seeing this movie for the first time, and I am super excited because I like Cronenberg a lot. I have some blind spots. This is one of them, and I can't wait.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen this. I saw this in high school, but I remember really enjoying it and finding it to be a little different from what I think I would come to understand Cronenberg to like be known for, I guess. So I'm excited to come back to it. So yeah. Well, Maria-Elena, it's been so great having you as always. You were my first movie buddy. You're one of the true meaningful movie buddies that I've had in my life. And so it's always great to talk about movies with you. And so thank you for being up for it again.
Thanks for coming back.
Yes. We'll hit you up the next time we're doing a Tom Hanks movie.
That's true.
Yeah, and whatever transferred soul he is in that particular case.
Can't wait.
It. In addition to this podcast, you can also follow us on YouTube and on TikTok and on Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter at sleeplesscinematicpod.substack.com. And of course, you can contact us via email. We'd love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. I am not in Letterboxd, but the two of you are. What are your handles?
Yes, you can follow me, Julian, at it's just my name, Julian_Barthold on Letterboxd.
And you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is your 7th or 8th or 80th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and to help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too. Nice to know the age of chivalry isn't dead.